Shalom. This week we are reading Parashat Bo, the third Torah portion in the book of Exodus, Sefer Shemot. You know, by the time our portion concludes and the 8th, 9th, and 10th plagues have been visited upon the Egyptians, the redemption will be underway and the exodus from Egypt will be at hand. Now, you recall that towards the end of last week's Parashat Va'era, in reaction to the 7th plague of hail, Pharaoh, in Hebrew Paro, finally seemed to have a sincere change of heart. He summoned Moshe and Aaron, and he said to them, "This time I have sinned. Hashem is the righteous one, and I and my people are the wicked ones." But as soon as he saw that the plague ceased due to Moshe's prayer, he immediately went back to his old ways. It made his heart stubborn once again. As we all know, it was too late for him. You know, there's so much that we can learn from the nature of the plagues, from their groupings. There's a whole idea, for example, that is expressed about how the plagues addressed the main concepts of the three-pronged denial that was taking place in Egypt. Denial of Hashem, denial of God's existence, denial of His providence, and denial of His ability to make any change in the order of the world. In other words, every detail of these plagues was designed to shake up these provincial and outdated beliefs, as it were, of Pharaoh. The purpose of the 10 plagues, as opposed to what most people think, it wasn't simply to punish Egypt. The purpose of the 10 plagues was for their education. It was to try and give the Egyptians a fresh start. But they were too far gone. They proved that themselves. That's their choice. I mean, the fear, the terror that the plagues struck in the heart helped. But once the threat was removed, Pharaoh's heart reverted to its previous state. It's very striking, amazing even, how in the middle of all of this, all of a sudden, with the beginning of chapter 12, the perspective changes. With the beginning of chapter 12, Moshe and Aaron receive a new mission. Till now, there had been messengers to Pharaoh on God's behalf. True, the true goal, ultimately, of their mission to Pharaoh is the redemption of Israel. But until now, the emphasis has been on Egypt. Because at God's behest, Moshe and Aaron had endeavored to bring back to the Egyptian ruler and to the Egyptian people that which they had lost. Their behavior indicates that they lost their divine image. They lost their sense of humanity. They lost their sense of dignity. They lost the realization that of the possibility that life can be centered on Hashem's presence, that there's a God who created everything. So the plagues were designed to try and bring them back to their own humanity. But now, something else entirely is happening. Till now, the focus of the narrative has been on the signs and wonders and the plagues through which God was revealing Himself to the Egyptians, and the effect or the lack of effect that it was having. But the focus now in chapter 12 becomes Israel. Pesach, Passover, which is the occasion of the Exodus, is, as we all know, the birth of the nation of Israel. Remember always that this is about a people, a nation, and not about a religion. So God is now beginning to forge, to construct the national life of His nation, Israel. And what is the first thing He does? What is the first thing He gives them? Remember, this is the first expression of collective responsibility, of fulfilling a commandment on the national level in history. What is the first thing He gives them? Time. He gives them time. He gives them a unique relationship with time. And this is the whole idea of the Torah's mindset of sanctifying time. So now in the middle, or rather almost at the end of everything, between the darkness and the slaying of the firstborn, we read, beginning of chapter 12, Hashem spoke to Moses and to Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, "This month shall be to you the head of the months. To you it shall be the first of the months of the year." There's a lot here. The fact that this was given over to the nation while they were still in Egypt, while they were still in the heart of darkness, to use that expression. While they were in the land of Egypt, God is giving them actually two commandments in one. One aspect is the concept of Rosh Chodesh, literally the head of the month, but not really. Because Chodesh, which we're translating here as month, is kind of a borrowed term. It really doesn't mean month. I mean, classically it means newness. But okay, the new moon, Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month, that's one aspect of the mitzvah. The other aspect of the mitzvah is that this particular month that is now being instructed to Israel is the first of the months, the first of the calendar, Nisan, the month of the redemption from Egypt. The month which we will see later is the month in which the tabernacle is erected in the desert. The month, the first day of Nisan, is the day upon which the Shekhinah, the divine presence, first dwells amongst God's people. First of Nisan is an extraordinary day. There are two mitzvot here. Now, there is a famous idea concerning this first commandment that Israel was given as a nation, which is referenced by the famous Rashi in his first comment on the entire Torah, back in the book of Brishit, on the first verse, very first statement that the holy Rashi makes in his commentary in the Chumash is, if the Torah is the book of mitzvot, which we know it is, the covenants between God and Israel, then actually, Rashi points out there on the verse, Brishit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, in the beginning Hashem, God created the heavens and the earth. Rashi points out, actually, the Torah should start with this verse, HaChodesh Elochem, this month shall be for you the head of the months, the one that we find in Exodus 12. Because if the Torah is all about how we bring Hashem's light into the world, how we observe His commandments, so then why aren't we starting from there? And the answer is because actually that it's not so simple, and the fact is that the whole book of Brishit, beginning with the Genesis narrative and Hashem's creation of the world and the early history of the patriarchs, is to show God created the world. Originally, He gave the land of Canaan to the 7 nations. He threw the 7 nations out of the land of Canaan, which was to become the land of Israel, and He gave it to the children of Israel. So Rashi says the whole reason why the Torah began with creation is to show that Hashem runs the world. But actually, let's reflect on this just for a moment, on this whole idea. In the midst of this firestorm, upheaval and chaos being visited upon Egypt, God gives the children of Israel collectively their first Torah-based obligation as a nation, which is nothing less than to sanctify time. Why? Why is this the first commandment? I understand from that Rashi why the Torah didn't begin there, but why is the responsibility of the commandments beginning with this one? And the deeper we think about it, the more we realize, and that's actually very simple as well. This whole idea of everything that Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, the beginning of the new month, everything it represents, is the very opposite, the antithesis of what Egypt was, of the reality of what Egypt was. And the whole goal of the Exodus from Egypt is that God does not want us to wind up the way the Egyptians were. Everything about the Torah, everything about a Torah lifestyle, everything about our existence, everything about the sanctity of the commandments is so that we become masters of time and not allow time to become masters over us, that we become and remain sensitive to every moment, and therefore nothing is ever allowed to grow stale or old. And we never become used to anything or numbed. So this first commandment, it's about time, but more than that, it's about the privilege, indeed the imperative the possibility, the responsibility of sanctifying time. It's the antidote to the mentality of Egypt, the diametric opposition to the staleness, the one-dimensional slavery of Egypt. It's a guarantee, if we do it right, that everything can always begin again. That's what the secret of the new moon is all about. And actually, this all fits in so perfectly right now, because not only did we celebrate Rosh Chodesh, which by the way is rather unsung. It's considered kind of a minor holiday. We'll talk more about that soon. It's unsung. So not only did we celebrate Rosh Chodesh this week, but this particular month, the month of Shevat, is a beautiful time to speak about what Rosh Chodesh is altogether, because the month of Shevat, characterized by the 15th of Shevat, Tu B'Shvat, the whole theme of this month is newness and renewal. Shevat is renewal. Rosh Chodesh itself is renewal. And it doesn't mean the head of the month or the new moon. It actually means, honestly, the beginning of newness, or even better, a new head. That's what Rosh Chodesh really means. And, you know, throughout the years we've spoken a great deal in our teachings about the significance of the commandment of the Corbin, Pesa, Passover offering, first being given in Egypt and first being observed in Egypt. We've spoken about the whole concept of how the very definition of the destiny of the people of Israel is capsulated, is the microcosm of the idea, the iconography of their destiny is the Corbin Pesach, because it is the slaughtering of idolatry before the eyes of the whole world, that we should stand unabashed and proud and be willing to take that step, that leap of faith, and fearlessly slaughter idolatry. But for now, and of course that is the major subject of this chapter of this parasha, and the Exodus is the simultaneous bringing of the Passover offering here in Egypt also. The two concepts of the Exodus, leaving Egypt and bringing the Passover offering, are totally and irrevocably intertwined. But right now, let's dwell on the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. It is a bit unsung, so that's what I want to really talk about now. This direct commandment from God of sanctifying the new moon is the beginning of the national life of the people of Israel. What is God doing here? He's giving them a sign. He's giving them a regular, repeating, periodic reminder that we'll always be able to draw from, that we will always be able to renew our relationship with God, that we would always be able to refresh ourselves and remind ourselves of the possibility of constant rebirth. And that very process is what protects Israel from the gross moral and spiritual insensitivity that characterized Egypt, and that frankly characterizes all idolatrous society. And that term has taken on entirely new meaning in our generations. When you consider, for example, the story of Hanukkah, the story of the Greek oppressors who occupied the land of Israel and defiled the Holy Temple, one of the decrees that they made against the Jewish people was against the new moon, against observing the process of sanctifying time for the new month. Because that mindset, the mindset of idolatry, however it's manifest today, is the opposite of a new mind. After the flood, God showed Noah the sign of the rainbow. And by showing him that sign, he said, this is my covenant with you, that I guarantee you, that I promise you that there will be a future for humanity, a new future. In the same way now in Egypt, this is Israel standing at the threshold of a whole new future. He calls Moshe and Aaron outside, shows them a little silver sliver of the moon, and he said, this renewal is for you the perpetual beginning of beginnings. And that month is to be for you the first month of the year. So this newness is inexorably bound up with the Passover offering, because it takes a completely new mind and conception to understand our ever-growing dynamic relationship with Hashem, who has no idolatrous representation, who has no beginning, who has no end. This is a mindset which is anti-old. And again, this is not about defining Rosh Chodesh so much as the new month or the head of the month, but rather about the beginning of beginnings, the reminder that we can always have a fresh start. So the institution of Rosh Chodesh, and there's so much deep knowledge here in history about how the new month was sanctified in the time of the Holy Temple, the Torah-based concept of the witnesses that would come forth and testify that they actually saw this visage in the heavens of the birth, as it were, out of darkness, of the slightest silver crescent of the new moon. This institution, it stands at the forefront of the very beginning of the nation of Israel. It's the very foundation of our people. It's what differentiates the people of Israel, the way of Israel, from paganity. Because for an idolater, there is no chidush. Nothing ever changes. There's nothing new. There's no renewal. You know why? Because there's no God. There's no renewal in the world, not in humanity, not in oneself. The person who lives without Hashem and makes it all up as he goes along to please himself or to accommodate whatever powers that be, for that person today is the same as yesterday, is the same as tomorrow. If God does not reign over the world, there is no true freedom. So therefore, in Egypt, in the land of the deepest darkness of denial, open up your hearts in the deepest way. God calls the future leader of Israel, Moses. He calls him outside. He shows him. The Midrash teaches us that when Hashem said to Moshe, Tzelem Elokim, this is to be for you the beginning of the months, he actually showed him. And he said, this is what, when you see this, it's time to sanctify the new moon. What did he show him? He showed him the little moon struggling to break out of a background of complete darkness into the light. And he said, this is you. This is the Jewish people. This is your example. Just as this moon renews itself, even though it's bound by the physical laws of nature, so too you may, must, can, you as a nation renew yourself, streaking across the firmament of history. When you see this each month, you'll be reminded of your own possibilities. And as it passes through the dark sky, you are also passing through darkness, and you proclaim newness. That Hashem gives man the possibility of starting afresh, that your entire fate is in your own hands, no one else to blame. And again, all this fits in beautifully with the month of Shevat, the current month of Shevat. This is the time of renewal. Rosh Chodesh itself is the time of renewal. And the concept of Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, the new month, the new head, new beginning, the beginning of beginnings, conveys a powerful lesson whose secret is rooted in the future. This is a very beautiful idea, because we've shared on many occasions, many, many times, that it's a core principle of Torah existence. Time is not linear, but cyclical. What does that mean? We observe a festival, we're not just commemorating or observing something that happened a long time ago, but we are actually presented with an opportunity to relive, to rectify, not to commemorate. The whole idea is to avail ourselves of the light that's coming into the world at this time of year. So it's about reliving something that's constantly going on. And all of the Moadim, Torah's word for the sacred festivals of Hashem's calendar, they're all reverberations of this massive spiritual rectification and light that were forged into the fabric of creation at that time. So every year, when we avail ourselves of that light, when we hook into that chag, that festival, that energy, we are ourselves now a refraction and a redefinition and a refocus of that original light. So it's happening again for us now, we're making it happen, but it's based on the original light in time of the moed, of the festival. But Rosh Chodesh is different. It's the exception to the rule, because just as Rosh Chodesh, the whole concept of the new moon, of the beginning of beginnings, of the head of the month, of that new head, represents the possibility of renewal and beckons us to grow, just as the moon is replenished after waning, so too the main light, the Torah teaches, of Rosh Chodesh is in the future. It hasn't even happened yet. It hasn't even been revealed yet. As the Torah teaches us through, for example, the prophet Isaiah, in Isaiah 66. After Isaiah chastises the people of Israel about their observance of Rosh Chodesh in the time of the temple, he tells us regarding the future, "It shall be that at every new moon and on every Sabbath, all mankind will come to prostrate themselves before me, says Hashem." So this has never happened before, but in the future temple, the entire human race will come to the Holy Temple every new moon and every Sabbath. This is an idea that in the future, Rosh Chodesh will take its place as one of the most important days in the Holy Temple, a day when all of Israel, and indeed the entire world, will gather together in the Holy Temple. Also Ezekiel tells us, in chapter 46, we read, "Thus said Hashem Elokim, the gate of the inner courtyard that faces eastward shall be closed during the 6 days of labor, but on the Sabbath day it shall be opened, and on the day of the new moon it shall be opened. Then the prince," that means the king, the Mashiach, "shall enter by way of the hall of the gate from without, and stand before the doorpost of the gates." It begins to talk about the offerings that will be brought then as well. And we are told the people of the land shall prostrate themselves before Hashem at the entrance of that gate on the Sabbaths and on the new moon. So this is a monthly gathering that will be held in the Holy Temple, a special occasion with the participation of the prince, namely Melech HaMashiach, the king, the Messiah. And the Midrash, the holy Psikta Rabbati, teaches us that in the future, Rosh Chodesh will become central. Even though it's now unsung, it will be one of the most important holidays of Israel. And the Midrash states that Hashem himself, as it were, states, "My children, until now, in the way the world has been, you've ascended to the Holy Temple only 3 times a year. But in the end of days, you will ascend to the Holy Temple each Sabbath and new moon." And this idea of Rosh Chodesh, the power of the light of renewal, which is how the Jewish people measure time, how they were given that gift and that obligation by God while yet in Egypt, before exiting the house of bondage. This is another example of one of the most important and recurring Torah teachings of all, namely, that the best is yet to come. And that's Parashat Bo, out of Egypt, marching towards redemption, towards the receiving of the Torah, towards the land of Israel, towards the building of the Holy Temple every day, ever fresh, every moment of our lives, ever renewed.